The stage lights dimmed just enough to let anticipation breathe. A hush swept across the Grand Theatre in London, that kind of silence that hums with curiosity and expectation. The audience leaned forward collectively, as though pulled by an invisible thread. This wasn't just another night of performances. Something about the atmosphere felt different, charged, electric, almost sacred. Backstage, a small figure stood still amid the quiet chaos. 10-year-old Roni Marley closed her eyes, her tiny fingers curled gently around the microphone. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from the weight of something far greater than nerves. She wasn't just stepping onto a stage, she was stepping into a legacy. Roni had heard the stories all her life. The music that changed the world. The voice that carried messages of love, unity, and rebellion across continents. The name Marley wasn't just a name, it was history. It was expectation. It was a melody that lived in millions of hearts. But tonight, it was her turn. A stage manager gave her a reassuring nod. "You're up, Roni." She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. In that moment, she wasn't thinking about the crowd, the cameras, or the pressure. She thought about the songs she used to hum in her room, the way music made her feel free, alive, understood. That feeling was her anchor. As her name was announced, the audience responded with polite applause, curious but unaware of what they were about to witness. A small girl walked into the spotlight, her presence almost fragile against the grandeur of the stage. She wore a simple dress, her hair gently framing her face, her eyes shining with quiet determination. There was a brief pause. Then the first note played. It was soft at first, like a whisper carried on the wind. Roni opened her mouth, and what came out didn't match her age, it transcended it. Her voice was rich, soulful, and hauntingly beautiful. It carried emotion far beyond her years, as if every note held a story, a memory, a truth. The audience froze. You could see it happen. The exact moment curiosity turned into astonishment. Heads tilted, eyes widened, conversations in the mind stopped, replaced by pure, undivided attention. Roni sang like she was telling a story that needed to be heard. Every lyric felt personal, every note intentional. She didn't just perform, she connected. Her voice moved effortlessly between gentle vulnerability and powerful resonance, filling the theater with something that felt almost spiritual. Somewhere in the front row, a woman covered her mouth, her eyes glistening. A man beside her leaned forward, completely captivated. Even the judges, seasoned, experienced, hard to impress, sat in stunned silence. It wasn't just talent, it was something deeper. Roni closed her eyes as she reached the chorus, letting the music flow through her. In that moment, she wasn't thinking about perfection. She wasn't trying to impress. She was simply feeling. And that authenticity, it was undeniable. The melody soared, and so did her voice. It rose with a power that seemed impossible for someone so young. The notes carried strength, but also tenderness, wrapping around the audience like a warm embrace. By the second verse, the atmosphere in the theater had completely transformed. The audience wasn't just listening, they were experiencing something. A connection, a shared moment of awe. And then came the bridge. It was quieter, more intimate. Roni's voice softened, almost breaking, but never losing control. It felt like she was speaking directly to every person in the room, as if each listener was the only one there. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. It wasn't part of an act. It was real. That single tear carried the weight of her journey, the late nights practicing. The moments of doubt, the quiet determination to honor something bigger than herself. When the final chorus arrived, it hit like a wave. Powerful, emotional, unforgettable. Her voice filled every corner of the theater, echoing with a strength that seemed to come from generations before her. It was as if the past and the present had merged into one breathtaking moment. And then, silence. The music stopped. For a split second, the world stood still. And then the eruption came. The audience leapt to their feet, applause crashing through the theater like thunder. Cheers, whistles, and cries filled the air. It wasn't just appreciation. It was disbelief, admiration, and something close to reverence. Roni stood there, breathing softly, her small frame glowing under the stage lights. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes wide, almost surprised by the reaction. The judges exchanged glances, each one trying to process what they had just witnessed. One of them finally leaned forward, shaking their head in amazement. That wasn't just a performance, they said, their voice filled with emotion. That was a moment, a real, unforgettable moment. Another judge smiled, clearly moved. You didn't come here to follow a legacy, they said gently. You came here to create your own. Roni listened quietly, her hands clasped in front of her. She didn't fully understand the magnitude of what she had just done, but she felt it. And that was enough. Backstage, the energy was completely different now. People who had been casually preparing for their own acts were now buzzing with excitement, whispering about the performance they had just seen. Did you hear her? She's only 10. That voice, it gave me chills. Roni walked back, still holding her microphone, her mind replaying the moment over and over again. She wasn't thinking about fame or success. She was thinking about the feeling she had on that stage, the connection, the freedom, the joy. A staff member stopped her, kneeling down with a warm smile. You did something very special out there, they said. Roni smiled shyly. I just sang, she replied softly. But everyone knew it was more than that. Later that night, clips of her performance began spreading like wildfire. Social media lit up with reactions from people around the world. Strangers who had never heard her name before were now sharing her voice, her story, her moment. Comments poured in. I've never felt something like this from a performance. She gave me goosebumps. This is what music is supposed to be. In homes across different countries, people sat glued to their screens, replaying her performance again and again. Parents showed their children. Musicians paused in admiration. Even those who rarely listened to music found themselves moved. Roni had done something rare. She had made people feel. The next morning, she woke up in her hotel room, the sunlight gently spilling through the curtains. For a moment, everything felt normal. She stretched, yawned, and sat up, her mind still half asleep. Then it hit her. The stage, the song, the applause. She smiled, not because of the attention or the praise, but because of the feeling she had carried with her, the same feeling that made her fall in love with music in the first place. Her family gathered around her, their pride evident but quiet. They didn't overwhelm her with expectations or pressure. They simply supported her, letting her grow, letting her be. Because they understood something important. Roni wasn't just continuing a legacy. She was becoming her own story. As the days passed, opportunities began to appear, interviews, invitations, collaborations. The world wanted to know more about the girl with the voice that could stop time. But through it all, Roni remained the same. She still practiced in her room, still sang for herself, still found joy in the simple act of creating music. Because for her, it was never about proving anything. It was about feeling something. And that feeling, that pure, honest connection, was what made her extraordinary. Back in London, the theater returned to its usual rhythm. New performers stepped onto the stage, each bringing their own dreams, their own stories. But those who had been there that night would never forget. They would remember the small girl who walked into the spotlight, the voice that silenced a crowd, the moment that felt like magic. And long after the lights dimmed and the curtains closed, one thing remained clear. Legacies don't just live on through names. They live on through moments, through voices, through the courage to stand in the light and share something real. And on that unforgettable night in Britain, a 10-year-old girl named Roni Marley didn't just honor a legacy. She became one.